How are we doing? Oh God, I gotta. Nah, I'm not. I'm not gonna hold that there this entire time. Hold on, just a second. Oh fuck. Hold on, just a second. Can you see me? I'm waiting for the right time. I can't. Or wait. I can't read you, but if you want the pleasure's all mine. Can you see me doing everything to hold back? I think I got the lyrics right. Anyway, that's Bags by Claro. Claro's incredible. So I should probably give some updates. It's been around a month since I've done one of these, and it's been a hectic ass month, and not because of college, but I have been sick. I was diagnosed with hepatic steatosis, which I may have talked about in the past on here. Hepatic steatosis and my my you know suspicions of liver illness, but this really does it. My diet sucks. It's no secret. If you hear any clicking in the background, it is my ceiling fan being obnoxious. So, but I gotta get air circulating in here because I think my fever's coming back. But the hepatic steatosis is not the only thing that's wrong with me. I'm getting, I'm actually getting a doctor, and then going to the doctor, and I can infer a lot of things wrong with myself. I've taken care of myself through several illnesses, but I mean, you can't be right all the time, but also, like, I don't have access to everything. I don't have access to equipment, and even then I'm not a trained professional, so I can't really take care of myself the way that a lot of doctors can. Of course, doctors can still be wrong, and if doctors are wrong, I'll continue the fight that I'm still having with my body, but my entire gastric system is just fucked up. And, I mean, like, that's okay, right? Totally okay to be sick, totally okay to have things wrong with you, as long as it's not, like, all the time, but I mean, it was getting to a point to where every couple days I would have these fits of vomiting, and I throw up blood the one day, and I can't do that. Like, I can't just leave that untreated or try to treat it myself, because it just doesn't work. So, and I'm a very visceral vomiter. You know, they actually, because of how I was throwing up in the ER, uh, they thought I had a hyperemesis, cannabinoid hyperemesis, because the throat, the screaming and vomiting combo. There's a cat somewhere in the hallway that will not shut up. But the screaming and vomiting, they thought it was cannabinoid hyperemesis, but I don't smoke weed. I don't do any marijuana habitually. I don't even remember the last time I did. It's not for me. One, I don't like altered states of consciousness, so like drug use alters like how you perceive things. And I don't like that because I really like my brain, or I like my brain working. It's not so much I like my brain. I like my brain working at max capacity. That's why I try to get a good amount of sleep, and I always try to take care of my brain. I always try to shut down headaches and everything because a lot of those things, but yeah, I'm glad I got my liver taken care of because hepatic encephalopathy, it's a hell of a thing. And it's probably easier to get than, a lot of people realize. So if I already have a fatty liver, I don't want to hurt my liver anymore. And, those problems, I take those problems very seriously because when it impacts, like, the knowledge intake and, as someone who loves learning and loves being in a scholarly environment, I take those things very seriously. So if I can do anything to prevent that, I will, and that's also why I don't really smoke weed. So yeah, I've been busy with illness and everything, and staying home, recuperating, trying to stay on top of everything. Um, I wanted to make a video like this for a while, but I've just been so tired and everything. It sucks. I hate being sick, but taking care of myself with electrolytes and the food I can manage, I will. But this is my life until I see a gastroenterologist and they can do things like colonoscopy, and I mean, yeah, it sucks. It sucks being sick, as always, but the diet change does leave me feeling better, and my my body will thank me for it. Once I start eating better, summer's coming along. I might start working out, actually, like working out and everything. So no guarantees, but there is that possibility. But I initially wanted to make a video on polyglotism and kind of like clarify a few things, because I know some things I say can, I don't know. I don't necessarily think the full implications of everything I say all the time. I try my best to think things through, but talking about studying languages, I will never ever consider myself a polyglot, and when I've talked about speaking languages in the past, I mean, obviously you hear this from spoken samples. It's like I'm I have very high literacy in these languages. Like, I can read a lot of text and a lot of samples and understand what they say. And that's really my main goal. So to get like B2 reading level and maybe even C1 reading level, I think I could maybe manage C1 German. I doubt it though, but B1, B2 efficiency and, like reading, that's my goal, right? As for the actual speaking and communicating and hearing and understanding, not, I'm not really worried about that at all. Um, I have come to notice that I understand spoken French pretty well now, actually. Like, it's really weird. Yeah, I don't know how that comes to be. I don't know how that did come to be, but it is true. I understand spoken French pretty well, and working on my pronunciation and everything. And as far as reading goes, I understand concepts better now that I've actually been through in a French course. But I'm getting that literacy that I wanted, and that's really what's important to me. So I was talking to the classics trained gentleman at my university, and he mentioned language proficiency tests, and I think I just heard something. Hold on. Alright, I'm tweaking. Oh, shit. But yeah, I talked to him, and he said that the language tests, like, you can be fluent in a language and still fail the proficiency tests, and I would like to be at a point where I can do it with English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, um, German, maybe Dutch, maybe Romanian. I've taken a keen interest in Romanian lately. Spending some time getting familiar with the grammar, getting familiar with phrases, the orthography, how things are coming together, and you know, I've become like I've become very focused on grammatical rules in all of these languages, and really just honing in on how the language works, and exceptions, things like that, irregular verbs, phrases. Not learning them on a phrasebook level, which, I mean, there are benefits to learning languages at a phrasebook level, I think, in the beginning, because you become familiar with what people, assuming the phrases are right and everything, you become familiar with how people talk to each other, or like the words they use, and then you can get familiarized with how people say things, or the little cut off, like, when I say the little cutoffs, I mean, uh yeah, the little cutoffs, like going from como estás to como estás to, not como estás to. That doesn't really make sense. The insistence of como estás already implies estás is in the to form, so you don't need the to. Okay, those sorts of things, like those things are also like things I obsess over, and little microcosms. Get obsessed with the grammar and everything. So, going from como estás to qué tal, and qué pasa, or qué pasa, as opposed to like qué ha pasado, and then como has estado, or yeah, como has estado, have you been, things like that. And I mean, I'm doing this with English too. You know, I do this at a really proficient level in the English language because I'm a native English speaker. But um, I think English was actually a really good landing point for me in terms of majors. Like one of my majors, the other is history. I love history, so that's always going to be there. But I think landing on um, I think landing on English is good because I am learning about all these grammatical concepts that help me understand language better. And I don't know, things they wouldn't teach you, like things we also don't have. Like Romanian has a long infinitive, and I think English also has a long infinitive with to be, like instead of beon or wison. Um, I think like that shit is cool. I think infinitive construction as a concept is cool. I don't think it really particularly applies to English because our infinitive quote unquote construction would be I would like to. I would like. I mean, there's some like verb construction there, but it's the conditional would like, that is conditional would like. But yeah, there are all sorts of verb constructions and things like that, and infinitive construction is actually called infinitive construction. When I say like verb construction, I don't particularly mean that they're called construction. Just the way I think, like when you, I like, I ought to, we do have, I would say the long infinitive with the to, so we don't. I don't know if in Old English like uh I don't know very many, but I don't know if you would do like each some verb and then the infinitive, so like beon or wison or right. Um I speaking of Old English, I have been reading a lot of Old English Wikipedia articles, and I'm actually getting pretty good at it. One of these days I might upload a video of me reading something from the Old English Wikipedia, but go like bith, and then bith and bith are both, I think, um, either they're conjugations of wison or beon, but or beon, uh, but I think like yeah the whole the differences or how English has changed over time, and looking at either comparing modern English to languages or comparing Old English to languages helps me understand the Indo-European languages that I so heavily focus on. You know, so like the concept that is alien to modern English speakers, not to their dismay or not to put them down or anything, or people that don't understand Old English vocabulary, which is a majority of people because there's very little practical use, but like the whole long versus short term to be. Now, I have very mixed feelings on the utility of these sorts of things, and I've been watching a lot of linguistics videos, and you know, I've never claimed on this platform to be one of those polyglot people, but I wanted to reassert my status that I am not a polyglot and I never will intentionally become a polyglot. Guys like Christopher Lee, who have been exposed to a lot of culture, or had been exposed to a lot of culture, rest his heart, rest his soul. But these people that become familiar with the tongues and the languages, like if I lived like 5-10 years in Spain, 5-10 years in Germany, 5-10 years in France, 5-10 years in Italy, 5-10 years in Portugal, I would achieve a much higher actual speaking and vulgar fluency, which I think vulgar fluency, and when I say vulgar, I mean of the people, so vulgaris. Um, I think I think this is I think that vulgar fluency is probably the most important. So, um, I went through this a lot when I worked in fast food, where a lot of Spanish speakers, I got so used to how they spoke that I didn't really think about grammar because I could parrot in a lot of ways. So, like like pair it in a cycle to myself to actually understand what they were saying or what they meant. So, and, you know, like shortening my sentences, that's vulgar importance. Now, me, I love long sentences. I love long sentences. I love, like, Ernest Hemingway sentences. Like, these long, drawn out sentences that are really detailed, they're great, right? Obviously you hear that a lot on this podcast where, I talk in depth about a lot of things, and, I like to be detailed when I can. Um, so I really like that, but in conversation you can't speak proverbially. Uh, you know, I do really like a lot of Tarantino movies and everything, but a lot of the dialogue is really whimsical and eccentric, and like, not that people don't speak the way they do, but a lot of people go on these long speaking tangents that doesn't happen in real life, right? So, I mean, yeah, I potentially could be a polyglot someday if I expose myself to the culture, but I don't really intend on doing that. I could be digital, I guess, digital to be at my digits, to be like writing and things like that, typing, texting, things like that. I could do that. I very much can do that in um a lot of cases, but when it comes to my own lexical understanding of languages, um, like, and my efficiency, it's like I obviously I still make stupid mistakes, like with gendered like, quote unquote gendered language. Um, but those mistakes I would say, are minor, but it's just my actual vocabulary itself, and because I have learned German and I've learned Spanish and I learn a lot of languages relative to each other, it does make it easier. So I am really thankful for that. But um, I don't have a super in depth understanding of, you know, or what am I saying? I don't have a super in depth like vocabulary list in a lot of cases, and that's what a lot of these people like. I can talk about movies in a lot of language, a lot of, cinema, película, kino, film, things like that. Talk about movies, talk about certain things, but I can't have like an in-depth conversation about like physics or anything. Like, that's, um, I'm sure, because English is a Germanic language, if someone started talking about molecules or particles in German, I'm also not like big into physics, so that also wouldn't exactly help. But um, yeah, so like, I would just be lost in a lot of cases, and um, it's really interesting, and I try to be really versed in a lot of specialized vocabulary. But the thing is, I don't think I would ever want to transfer to a non-Anglophone community, because I have spent a lot of time honing a vocabulary in English that I don't think I could replicate. I have a lot of figures of speech I use. I speak in metaphors a lot of times. You know, I know, like, I have very specific words I use for very specific things, and I try to alter my vocabulary to keep things fresh, right? Not to blow smoke up my ass or anything. Just I don't like repeating the same words over and over again. Like, if I say nonsense twice, I'll use balderdash, right? Um, Now the amount of times you use the word nonsense is menial, right? But you know, uh, but just to have that in your back pocket, to when you're actually speaking to people, it's like, how's your day been? It's all right. It's okay. It's been been, eh, you know, there are those sorts of things too, but there's also the actual vocabulary you use. So, how's your day been? It's been boring. It's been banal. It's been lame. You know, it's been uh, like yeah. When you're thinking about it, you can't come up with anything to say, and you know what you want to say. That makes things very tedious. So I try to avoid doing that. And I mean, I guess that's why I love sciences and I love like theoretical approaches. So, like, I can see a muscle in the ground, and I can say it's infaunal, semi-infaunal, vagrant, sessile, benthic, all those sorts of things, and drawing, and of course, muscles are a common name, but are muscles brachiopod? I think are they? Yeah, I think they're brachiopods. But there is knowledge that interlocks with itself, like knowing that sea cucumbers are echinoderms, and echinoderm obviously means spiny skin, so it kind of like makes sense with how sea cucumbers look on the outside. But like those sorts of knowledges that knowledge base builds upon itself, and I think it's important that a lot of people have those, and a lot of people have those sorts of like vocabularies that they use, um like a lot of the stoner community, like they know a lot of the difference between the strands and everything, and how they talk about the use of marijuana, and like a lot of people look at that and be like, oh well, smoking pot's only useful for junkies and people who smoke pot, and it's like, well, there's a lot of medical implications for marijuana, so I guess that isn't true. But I mean, I'm straw manning here. I haven't really seen that, or I haven't really seen a lot of that. Of course, I've heard it in natural dialogue, but I don't make this argument. But if someone were to be like that, but that is a really and I mean, it's a plant. It's a vascular plant, so it's a tracheophyte. It's tracheophyte. It's not a bryophyte. Um, does it flower? I know. I feel like a slang term for marijuana is what shit. What is it? Like flower herb. So I mean, it could be an angiosperm, but I don't know. Right? I don't smoke pot. I don't do. And I mean the same thing goes for nicotine. Nicotine. So these people like, of course, a lot of it has to do with brands. Like you have a Juul, you have a fucking. What do people use? Is it geek bars? Are geek? No, being geeked is like being high, isn't it? I don't fucking know. Okay, just imagine geek bars are for nicotine, right? So a lot of it is corporate speak, which does come into like vulgar speak. So there's like, oh, I've got my Nikes on, Nike. I don't know, but yeah, there's a lot of branded vocabulary, and like oh, I'm playing my Fender, right? And I could realistic. I try to avoid brandish speak, because you know I don't really, I'm not a fan of consumerism. I'm not a big proponent of capitalism. I don't think capitalism is a way of the future. I think it's got merits, but a different talk for a different time, right? So like yeah, so playing my Fender. So I yeah, there is a lot of that. Like Duna is big in Germany, and I think they sell like kebabs or Turkish food or whatever. But like I hear things about Duna, and I'm like it makes me think of like sheets, right? So signifier versus sign, long versus parole. There, I'm in a critical methods course, so being introduced to Derrida and things like that, really good for the brain. Critical methods has been great for my brain. I love my professor, but God, that class fucking irritates me sometimes. Um, but yeah, so signifier versus sign there, I think of a local thing in Germany, and, I think of sheets here in Pennsylvania, and if I lived in Philly, it would be like Wawa, right? Maybe. I don't know, right? So, I mean, there is that, and that is also really important in a language, though. So there are things I'll just never understand, and that's why I focus on the literary aspect. What do I do with that research? Well, it depends on the research, right? I was reading something in Romanian that my professor gave me. He's from not Dobruja, but I think it's Munitia, and he fuck, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, he showed me a book in Romanian on fossils, and I understood a lot of it actually, but I wasn't really familiar with the grammar. I was more familiar with the vocabulary and everything, and thank God Romanian is like Latin based because I wouldn't have gotten any of it if it wasn't related to anything. But I understood a lot of what I was reading, and I mean, that was really cool. That's what it really inspired me to get into Romanian grammar and everything, and like try to understand the language better. And yeah, so I guess it just depends on the situation. If it's a blog post about Pearl Jam and Swedish, then I'll read it, and understand it. People making commentary on Pearl Jam, you know. So yeah, I am not a polyglot. That joke about that, what I said earlier about being polydigital, it was a joke mostly, but like yeah, thank God autocorrect exists, and like I could write like I maybe not a research paper, but I could write an essay in a few languages. I think it would be very basic, very bare bones in a lot of cases, but I think I could do that. But as far as advanced communication goes, talking about nuanced subjects, having a really rich vocabulary, I don't do that. Not even in writing. Uh, yeah, and the digital era does make everything easier to actually like communicate and type because, I mean, if you make a mistake while you're typing, then like I said, autocorrect and things like that exist. But yeah. So I am not a polyglot, but yeah, I really do like language, and in the future, I would like to go to grad school for linguistics, get my translation shit going. That'd be really awesome. And I mean, I'd love to see the world, become immersed in culture, and I mean, the thing that does come with like studying a lot of languages and everything is you do get subtle immersion into the culture. Once you study why things are done a certain way, like with Latin, I've read a lot of like plays and you know, publications, I guess, like stories, books, not entire books, like not cover to cover, but read a lot of texts in Latin. Just become so familiar with it, it's just in your brain, right? With the pronunciation. Now, I'm a sucker for some pronunciation. I fucking I love pronouncing things. I love learning how things are said. I learned how to do that. God damn it! Hold on. There we go. The Polish RZ thing. So yeah, I learned how to do that, and I'm trying to learn how to do sounds right. I can't do the Welsh thing right all the way. So, cyfre. You can't say cyfre right, or cyfred. Not frit. Cyfred. I don't. When I hear Welsh people say words like that, I don't hear them pronounce the th at the end. So, cyfre it is. I think it means milk. I don't know why that came to mind, but like, Gwynedd. I can Lloyd, would Lloyd count? Is Lloyd a or like Sandovari? 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 Yeah. Yeah. I is Lloyd a Welsh name? If so, I don't think I'm doing that. I don't think I'm doing that thing right. But you know, but yeah, I'm a sucker for some pronunciation. I fucking love pronunciation. That's probably why I avoided like becoming like entranced in French learning and everything, because my thing with French is like, because I am a sucker for pronunciation, I want to say everything right. I want things to be consistent, and things often aren't consistent. But I'm finding more that it's more than just, oh, you don't say these few letters. It's much more complicated than that. Honestly, the way like people explain, the way that French has been explained to me, where it's like you don't say these letters at the end, that's a really basic way of looking at it. And it was very harmful to my French learning. Um like if there's two vowel sounds, like possessive adjectives, right? So like it's not mami, it's mon ami. You say that N because of the vowel transfer, right? And then um you know, you have things like aujourd'hui, uh yeah, so things like that. It's not just simple as you don't say these letters, and then you know, and then there's a whole lot of things with the vowels. Like I say je instead of je because there's je. Um, so it's not je because je is like I have, right? But like je ne, so like je ne sais pas. Um, and then the aspirated R, or not the aspirated R. Is it an aspirated R? But the so like mercredi, right? So those sorts of things. I'm a sucker for those sorts of pronunciations where you have to work your ass off to actually learn the orthography of the language, learn how things are said. Um, like Spanish. I don't really have any opinions on Jaismo, but I do say Jaismo instead of Yaismo because I feel like there's an air of respect with saying Jaismo like Jaismo, because it is, I mean, it exists, right? But the thing with Spanish is like I do roll my V's there when the V is between two, vowel sounds, and then I try to keep that consistent. Like, is it fricative? Is that the word I want to use? The b, the voiced there. I don't know if it would be fricative, but I know voiced is the word b. But keeping that consistency, keeping the th sound, so staying true to Castellano, pronunciation. So yeah. And then German has its German. German is German. But I always try to stay with the Hochdeutsch Deutschland sprechen. Wohin, R is always so Deutscher Mann, yeah. And yeah. So there is that level of consistency. Yeah. So I'm a sucker for pronunciation. I like things to be said, and I like things to be said right and in full. I'm also a language purist. The thing with language purism is a lot of it is based in racism, and that is not the case. I don't really care for loan words, but in a lot of cases they have to exist, like alchemy and alchemical. I don't know why I said alchemical like that. Alchemical, like alchemy, things like that, things that come from Arabic, things that they deserve their flowers, right? I in Spanish it's like química, so there is the drop of the al, but I don't know. I think there's a problem there too. You can't ignore such a great contribution to culture because the culture is separate to yours. But I digress. So, um, yeah, I am a language purist. Like, my French professor was talking about the snobby people at l'Académie Française, and I like fin de semaine more than bon weekend. I would prefer to say the entire French phrase because I don't like loan words, and uh, I think weekend comes from Wochenend in German. So I mean, obviously German and French rub on each other a lot, but yeah, I would just prefer languages stay as they are. Now, over time, language is going to specialize. So like helicoptero and Latin, like helicopters didn't exist when the Latin language came about, right? Didn't exist when English came about either. Um, I what does helicopter mean? I I mean I know what a helicopter. I don't know what the word helicopter means, but it obviously these things didn't exist, so they had to come about. Like if you said helicoptero or a telephone or something, it's Andy in German. It's cellulaire in French. I think it's cellulaire. Something like that. But yeah, if you said those things, I'd understand what you're talking about. But I don't like I don't know what these things exactly mean. Now there are words that I know the whole kit and caboodle. Is it kit and caboodle or kitten caboodle? Kit and caboodle. I feel like that's right, but um yeah, I know the whole ordeal about them, like dog, lupus, um cynic. They like those words are all related, and or no, dog is not related to lupus. Wolf is related to lupus, and yeah, so dog is related to cynic though, right? So there are things I know like that, and then yeah, all sorts of things, right? Testicles, and then hold on, what was I gonna say? Testimony, testicles. I think did I learn that from the Scorpius guy, the guy that does Latin. Um, I did that one thing where he did the thing in Latin where like the Romance languages tried to guess the words, and I did that, and I got all the questions right. I was very proud of myself actually. But yeah, it's aside the point. Yeah, I think it was him who taught me those sorts of things, but I always look them up just to make sure it's right, because you know every once in a while uh you'll get codswallop. The reason I use the word codswallop is because of the folk etymology. Um, codswallop, people associating it with a sort of soda. Um, I can't remember the folk etymology, but yeah, codswallop just means nonsense, and it's a better word than belly rot and balderdash. But codswallop, uh, yeah. So every once and again, those things pop up, and I just like to be sure. But surely there are the curious cases of Cadwallader's dragon where um just bullshit gets tossed about and just lands. But I don't remember the entire story of Cadwallader's dragon. Cadwallader's dragon is the dragon on the Welsh flag, but yeah, it's yeah, whew. It's a long story, I'll tell you that much, and I'm very tired. But um it I think something that was like a dragon belonged to like the first king of Wales, which the first king of Wales, his name was like Griffith or something like that. I have I have a song after him, named after him. I can't remember his name. I wouldn't be able to remember his name now. It's Griffith. It's Griffith App something, and I just can't remember. But yeah, and I is the Welsh name for King Brenin? Is it named for someone? I feel like it could be named for someone, but yeah, I completely digress. But yeah, there are things like that happen. So yeah, I'm not a polyglot. So yeah, dealing with sickness. I'm not a polyglot. What else I want to talk to? Oh, I met the guy from fucking Aftermath of Delonia online. He's a super cool dude. His name's Asher, and he likes linguistics. Um, he likes German, Dutch, Spanish. You know, those are all fucking cool. He's a major in linguistics. I would also be a major in linguistics if my university had an undergrad program in linguistics, but that is okay. So, but yeah, I met him. He's a super cool dude. I'd like to get him on here for an interview at some point. Not an Evan Button show interview. God, I would never do that to that poor bastard. But yeah, he's super cool. His album Tree is out. You know, um, let's lobby for new Aftermath of Delonia album, and hopefully, hopefully, he agrees. Get a more long form release, because Tree is 8 songs and 16 minutes. I want to say this, so like 2 minutes per song. That's fine, but like yeah, I prefer more long form content, especially when it's high quality like that. I really could stand for longer record times, but it obviously not everybody puts a minimal effort into recording like I do. Um, Cascade's in the bin, by the way. No more. I'll release what I have recorded now, and that'll that's it. I'm done. Right. So yeah. Um yeah, I met the guy from Aftermath Colonia. And yeah, I do want to interview him, and that'll be awesome if we can get it to happen. And I mean, that's really all I have for you. I might record an episode next week because finals are coming up, and I'm gonna be miserable. But hasn't been a good semester, so I might not be making exquisite academic progress, but we'll see. But here's to feeling better. Thank you for listening. If you did, I'll see you around. Take care. Peace and love. Rock out. Yeah. Lock in.